Awesome.
Yay, dude, that was awesome. Oh my
gosh, where were we?
I know. I felt like it was one of those conversations where like transported out.
We did.
Like the energy is just connected and like everything else is so good.
That was amazing. I don't even know if you understand the depth of what you just shared.
Ooh.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Evolve with Emily show. I'm your host, Emily Hayden, and you guys know that the show's on the road right now. I currently am in Newport, California, and I have stopped today to interview a not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6-time world champ, but a 7-time world champion. She is Queen K, jiu-jitsu and athlete coach. She teaches jiu-jitsu athletes to be happy champions who go further faster. She's the host of the Get a Grip with K show. She's the commentator for Flow Grappling. She has been all over. If you guys are familiar in the jiu-jitsu world at all, you guys have heard of her. Her name is Kendall Ruesing.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
I feel so sparkly after you announce me like that. Oh, yeah. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. This has been a long time coming.
Sure.
I feel like I should tell the audience a little bit about how this interview even happened. So, okay. The audience knows last year I kind of started getting into jiu-jitsu. I had a lot of friends that inspired me to do it, but everyone that I knew were males. Like all of them are guys, which is great. I love my guys, and especially jiu-jitsu guys. They're great. But I was like, you know what? I really need some female jiu-jitsu girls to look up to, and I just don't know of any of them. So I started like doing my research, and of course, like one little Google search and your name and your face, and you know all your like crazy champion things are gonna pop up. And so I found you, and I find you on Instagram, and not just are you posting about jiu-jitsu, but you're posting about mindset and personal development and consciousness. And I immediately was just drawn to you, and I was like, you know what? I just need to message her. And so I was like, hey, Kendall, I was looking to be inspired by some jiu-jitsu women, and I just wanted to reach out. I love what you're doing. I support it, and just thank you for what you do. And then to my surprise, you knew who I was.
Oh my God, so crazy. We were just talking about this earlier. Like when I was like 17, I went through such like a huge fitness phase of like following all the influencers and all the people that you were friends with, and like followed all of you guys. And then it was so crazy. And then you messaged me. I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen her page in years, but like, I know so much about you.
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't know that I know a lot about you, but I know a lot about you. Like I used to watch your YouTube videos when I was in high school. Like that's so crazy. And then it just kind of, and then you came and trained. That was so fun.
Which is so cool, because I also had never been taught by a female instructor. So, you know, you're there, you have multiple gyms. I come to your class. You let me come. Thank you, by the way. It's your like competitor class, you know, I show up. You're such an incredible teacher.
Thank you.
Wow. I was like, what's the word? I really admired the way that you were able to teach and connect with each student. And it was really amazing. I felt like even being a beginner, I could be there and like be a part of it and train hard and really get what I needed out of it. So it was just cool. It was really empowering to see. And yeah, I'm just inspired by you overall.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're going to be in California now too.
I know.
You can hang out and train some jiu-jitsu, and you won't be a white belt forever.
I know.
Don't worry. The white belt's a really tough phase, but it won't last forever.
Also, because I've been traveling, I've not been training while doing all this traveling and van life and whatnot. So that's kind of been difficult. But I figured I was like, I may need to just see who has the most gyms in the most places and get that membership so I can go ever. We can talk about this later.
For sure.
I digress.
I got a lot of advice.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys are in for a treat. Like you guys don't even know what kind of podcast you are in for right now. But in efforts to try to kind of get you guys caught up to speed about, you know, where we're going to go in this episode, I actually want to read an Instagram caption of yours.
Oh,
and it's not a quick caption. So I'm going to take my time and I'm really going to read it.
Okay.
And as the listeners are listening, I really want you guys to, if you can, like just really sit and receive this message. Because the truth is, you could probably not listen to the rest of the episodes, to the rest of my show, not read another caption. If you were just to take this to heart and truly live it out, your life, you would experience life so differently. You would be able to experience the hardships of life, the highs of life, and everything in between in such a way where you would be steadfast. So there really is such wisdom in these words, and it's a caption that I'll link it below if you guys want to read it for yourself and also see the beautiful photo that goes with it. But I'm going to go ahead and read it for you guys now. Living a happy, fulfilled life in which you feel you're contributing to the greater good to the positive forces in the world is not for the weak. It is for the courageous, the disciplined, the committed. It will require all of you, really, and it will ask of you things like your willingness to break right open and to lead from your heart, to feel and accept it all in order to be of service to both yourself and others. A commitment to remaining a forever student, to keep forgetting what you thought you knew. The ability to accept life on life's terms, even when things get ugly, and take the next best step with grace and self-respect anyways. To ask trusted friends and family, where can I improve? And then listen with an open heart and mind. Your constant embrace, integration, and recalibration of both the light and the darkness within you. The ability to be brutally honest, absolutely honest, when appropriate, and not to cause others grief. Resilience, to always fight forward for what you believe is right, from the way you choose your daily actions, to the way you spend your money, to the way you treat others who can do nothing for you. To truly commit to a life of love and joy, which sounds glamorous, but it is a commitment like any other, requiring discipline, sacrifice, and the constant letting go of what doesn't support those two. And I'm certainly not an expert on the human experience, but I do my very best to stay curious about how to truly live well. And then I practice every day. Sometimes I get it wrong. I find new blind spots. I get it right. I get it really wrong again. But I show up and I ask questions, find guidance, tell the truth, open my heart, even, especially when it hurts. Go with myself and reconnect and let go and get humble over and over. And I find my peace there in my humility, my love for my own spirit, my joyous curiosity, and my expansive love for my neighbor and all that is one. My wish today is for you to truly feel this love that I have for you, to try it on for size, and then maybe, if it feels right, to pay it forward to someone else. Wow. Girl, that is a wealth of knowledge that is coming from such a deeply authentic place. So I want to start the show out by asking you how and where does this wealth of knowledge come from? It's like there's this whole ocean of depth within. So how have you reached this point of awareness, of consciousness? You know, what have been those things in your life that have really led to such a conscious way and intentional way of living?
Yeah, wow. Thank you for reading that. I didn't know which one you were going to read. It's funny. I swear that it's like one of those things where you're like, this is crazy, but knowing us with the synchronicities, it's not crazy. On the way here, I'm wearing the hoodie that I'm wearing in that shirt.
No, you're not.
I'm wearing the exact same hoodie that I'm wearing in that post, this scramble hoodie. Yes. And literally I'm driving here and I was thinking about that photo because I was like, oh, the last time I wore this. Yes. I'm like, it's crazy.
Also, when I started recording, the record time on my camera was 444.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Like I'm not even, it's like, I'm going to stop saying it's crazy because now I just expect it. Yeah. But thank you for reading that. It was so wild to hear my words in the voice of somebody else. It was pretty impactful. So I appreciate you reading that.
That's cool.
It hit me different than when I wrote it.
That's cool.
And it's like gave me like, you know, when we kind of speaking into depth and consciousness, we may be in a space to speak something into life. And then the next day comes around and then you're back in the cycle, you're in this or you're in that. And then, so, you know, hearing my own words back, it's like, yeah, oh yeah. And it's so we're never done. It's just kind of like what I wrote. I'm like, well, I'm a forever student. Like I've fucked shit up all the time. I get it wrong a lot and I forget. And it's like the constant, there's a quote and I don't know who it is, but it talks about the constant remembering of what we've forgotten. Right. And it's like if I can spread, like if I look at my life as a one long timeline, it's not a linear timeline, but imagine it is. And it's like, if I can reduce the periods of forgetting and just make the periods of remembering longer and closer together, I know that like that.
It's so good.
It's so good. Like that. Those aren't my words. Someone told me that one time and it was so impactful. I'm like, getting it wrong is not getting it wrong. Like wrong and right, like that's a whole debate in itself, but it's really just how often can I remember? How often can I remember to come back to myself and to the knowing and to the teachings of people that are wiser than I am. And so to your question, I mean, life experience and being willing to ask a lot of questions, you know, like I told you earlier, I was really lucky to grow up in a home of I would say like my mom has her PhD in Jungian psychology, and my parents were both entrepreneurs and they have vast life experience, and they've had a lot of great mentors themselves. So I grew up with that language. And then growing up with a language doesn't mean that you get the lessons. Like, as we all know, people try to teach you, and you go on living in your own life.
For myself.
Yeah. Oh, well, you were made for you, but not for me. You don't know who I am.
Yeah.
You don't know what I could do.
Yeah.
Turns out we're all the same. I should have listened. But it's like the first word that came to mind when you said that is like pain. Like, but not just pain, because I think we can turn into martyrs and we can be in pain and suffering, and look how much I can carry. We talked earlier about like terminally unique, like look how hard my situation is. But it's like, no, I was in pain, but then I got really, really, really humble. Like the second that I go into not knowing what the next step is, the second I get the answers and relief, right? That took me a long time to learn. And I still forget sometimes, like the forget versus remember. It's like, if I could say enough humility to ask for guidance and mentorship, then I'm in the right space. The second I think I have it all figured out, then like I'm in for some pain and I'm in for a new lesson, and the cycle repeats.
It's crazy that we're talking about this, because I literally had a conversation. Was it this morning? It was last night. I had a conversation about people who think that they already have all the answers and they already know it. And I think people wouldn't cognitively or intentionally say, I have all the answers and I know everything. Yet in their stance and certain beliefs, maybe in religion or, some of these really important topics, they don't realize, they don't even realize that they're the ones doing that. They're the ones saying like, oh, I this is what it is. And because they're not asking the questions, they're not able to go deeper. They're not able to see, what might be there for them. So I love that you have such just a student mentality towards life. But what are some of those teachings that you've drawn to, or who are some of these leaders or mentors? And this could be online, YouTube videos, seminars. Like, who are these people that you're looking up to and gaining wisdom from?
Yeah. I mean, a couple of them are not in the online space because they do their work like strictly in the real life, in the 3D.
Yeah.
But I would say like the biggest thing that shifted for me, like when people talk about being a forever student, it sounds really glamorous. Kind of like what I said in that, like it sounds glamorous, but for me, it's not. Like there's two different kind of trains of thought when like learning from pain, right? It's like there's certain things like, oh, this happened to me. And for me, that has been pretty easy to discuss with therapists or discuss with friends because I didn't do the wrong thing. Someone did something wrong to me. And that is not to take away from the importance or the validity of that. That's a very necessary body of work. But for me, my body of work came from like for example, something happened in the last couple of years that I can't publicly speak about because it's other people's privacy. But basically what happened is I was very judgmental about a certain area of life. I was very judgmental about like, this is right and this is wrong. And then I found, and for years I held this opinion. I told people about it all the time. And then, and I spoke publicly about it. And I ended up in a situation where I compromised my own integrity and did something similar to the thing that I would always say was wrong. Right.
Wow.
So I was total in a lot of hypocrisy and total out of alignment with my integrity. Wow. And it was the most like shameful, one of the most shameful experiences in my life. I was like, I can't believe that I did this.
Wow.
And it took me to the point of like, that's where I'm like, the answer is pain, because I was so humble on my knees of like, how the fuck did this happen? Who am I? I thought I knew who I was. Like those kind of, like I've hurt other people in this process, like those kind of experiences. And then going to, for me, like to get tangible, it was going to a therapist that I'm very close with, a traditional like talk therapist. She does a lot of different kinds of modalities. But then the other person was a yoga therapist I was telling you earlier about that I work with. And then also like one of the most valuable resources we have are the people in our lives that love us deeply. I have a couple, like I'm blessed to have a couple people in my life that they love me deeply. They are not afraid to tell me the truth, or even if they are afraid, they'll do it anyway. And the tangible tip of being receptive. I had to be in a lot of pain to get receptive. I don't think that you always have to be. Now I'm very like,
I don't have to hurt that bad.
Now I'm way more open to being receptive without being in as much pain. I don't have to get as desperate because I've been in like same thing with my eating disorder. I've been in my eating disorder recovery program for almost 7 years now. It's been a long journey. And I needed to be in a lot of pain and desperation to get help. I wasn't willing to get help until I was super desperate. So literally sitting down, like one of the most powerful things that I can do that I still try to practice all the time is I sit down with someone who I love, who I trust, who I know is not out to hurt me. They're not out to get me. I respect the way they live their life. I think that they are people of integrity and high standards for themselves. And I say, hey, I want to know what you think about X, Y, and Z. What do you think I should do? Or is there anywhere I have a blind spot right now? Here's what I think about this. What do you think? And not asking to get reaffirmed, right? And then also the commitment to like, you can tell me the truth. I'm open to hearing the truth. I'm not going to be reactive. I'm not going to hold this against you later on, bring it up in a conversation. Like, why the fuck did you say that? Yeah. That's priceless. Like, that's free.
Yeah, that's true freedom. And having that freedom in relationship, I think is what creates those deeper connections that you can really count on when it comes to it, of getting that clear reflection or that clear feedback that you need in order to grow. Yeah. So the fact that you've already implemented that into your life and it's such a important part of your life, it really makes sense why you'd be where you're at. Like it's a mirror to where you're at now is, just you doing this personal work, you being open and receptive. But I do also just have to say, like, one, thank you for sharing that story. The fact that you're even able to speak on something like that and to say out loud that you were out of integrity and this is how it felt and, everything that comes with that. Cause I think we all go through something similar at a certain point. And the shame that is attached to that is something that can be
guilt.
Speak a little bit to shame and guilt and getting out of the grasp of shame and guilt. What do you think can help people to get out of that?
Man, this is so good and so funny that you mentioned these two words, because I was literally just listening to Drew Barrymore talk on Jay Shetty's podcast about shame and guilt, and what she said resonated with me so heavily. And this is something. The reason I recommend therapy to everyone is not because you're always in a crisis, but because when you are in a crisis, you want an established relationship.
That's so true.
I can't be in a crisis and like call a new therapist and be like, can I tell you my whole life story supposed to make sense to you?
I did that once.
Yeah,
and the therapist literally looked at me and I was like, are you okay? Like, I feel like you didn't have the space to hold what I just told you.
Right.
And now you're not available for 5 weeks. And I just told you my whole...
It's trauma. It's like traumatizing. And honestly, that's self-sabotage. Like for me,
it was bad.
It's self-sabotage. Like in my opinion, if I were to do that, it's like trauma dumping. Like that's a whole other conversation. Trauma dumping. But I think it's important to have established relationships with mentors so that when you go through stuff, they know you deeply, and you trust them. Like it's not a random person. It's not like, anyway, so going back to shame and guilt. Drew said this and it resonated with me so heavily. She's like, shame and guilt are like roommates in my head. And it's like, she said it so good. She's like, you're living with these roommates and they're like not that tidy and they're loud and they come home late and they're like making the house smell and all these things. And you're like, I just want to evict you. Like, get out. Like, I need to live by myself. I need to be by myself in my space, in my brain. I want to keep it nice. I want to keep it clean. It's going to smell good. Like, shame and guilt are these emotions or these heavy, I like to like view them outside of myself, like kind of as like people or my hands. I could put a name to it, like your shame and your guilt.
Yeah.
They are visitors that pop up once in a while, but I don't have to let them stay and live in my house, like, and this is something my therapist and I talk about all the time too, not just with shame and guilt, but with other aspects. Cause we all have these like different kind of archetypal representations of ourselves. None of them are wrong or bad or evil or not welcome. But I like the innermost knowing of me, which I consider to be like oneness or God or, spirit, which I am and your dog is and you are and the plant is and we are all it, we are all this source energy in the way I view things. That part of me got to decide how long these things stay and play a part. For example, when I had this big experience where I was so ashamed of myself and I was so guilty and I felt so horrible. Like I just wanted to die. Like I was like, I'm getting like shaky thinking about it. I was like, get me off of this planet. Like I'm like, how did I even get here? And it was the kind of thing where I look back and now I kind of see my lower self, like my higher self used my lower self to get me to moving, to get some shit
kidding.
going, you know? Like I needed to get shaken out, and there were signs and signals, and like life was pulling me in different directions, and I was so blind. Like I felt like I was on drugs at the time. Like I wasn't, but I felt like I was. and I needed to be pulled out, and people got hurt in the process, right? So when I think about that event, like if there were no shame and guilt initially, that I don't want to demonize those things. Like they got my attention, you know?
Yeah.
But they didn't need to stay and hang out.
Right. There's like an expiration date to
Yes.
their teaching, and they need to teach you what they need to teach you, and then it's time for them to go.
Yeah. And they help guide, but it's like putting a name to them is helpful because I can speak to the shame. I can say, hey dude, you know, thanks for showing up. Thank you for pushing me where I needed to go, but you are no longer serving me. Like now you're hurting me, and you're keeping me away from the good work that I can do in the world and the happiness that I can have, that I deserve, that I feel innately. Like I was born with the right to feel this joy, this love, this happiness. And I don't need you anymore. Like you can go take a vacation. You know?
Here you go, paid vacation. Please leave.
Please leave. Get out of my house. Like I'm tired of my house smelling gross. You know, get out.
Yeah.
Like I want to live alone now.
Yeah.
You know, or invite some other friends over. Like I don't need you.
Yeah. I like the idea of naming these different emotions that we have, you know. I think even like categorizing certain things, right? Like when you're having a difficult experience, let's say that you're having anxiety, rather than like just giving into all of your anxious thoughts, being the observer of those thoughts, right? And getting into the observer's seat to say, what is the chatter about? What are the stories that are being told? What are the fears that are coming up, right? Because I feel like, you know, when we talk about consciousness and personal development, there are layers to everything. And I think the fun part is going layer to layer to layer and like really peeling things back to get to the root of everything. Because at the surface layer, we may think that we are anxious, right? But when we get beyond the anxiety and like, oh, my thoughts can't stop. Well, can you sit still for a second? Can you listen to those thoughts? Maybe they're trying to tell you something. You know, do you have a conversation that is, you have things left unsaid that you need to finish up? You know, like it's crazy because you were saying it's almost like your higher self used your lower self. I think that's happening a lot, and we're just not listening to the messages that we're being given. Like when I look back at my life too, a lot of difficult things that I experienced, I had sign after sign after sign of like, hey, like you have got to shift something here, you know? And for me, it also took me getting to a really, really painful point before I was able to actually like wake up to it and make some drastic changes that I needed to make. You know, I think people learn a few different ways, sometimes by pain, sometimes by opportunity. And I think if you know that you're somebody that learns by pain, then maybe the goal, maybe it can be, like you said, now you don't have to get so low and so painful, but now it's like, okay, you start to see it quicker. You can observe these things quicker, and then you can make those changes in your life.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer that lessons come cyclically. And so like, you know, when I think about being in a lot of pain versus a little pain, like my goal, my hope for myself is that when these lessons keep coming, right? Like they're not, I don't believe that lessons really complete. They come in like varying degrees of
That's good.
difficulty. You know, like you get higher up in the video game.
10.
Exactly. Like my bosses change, like the big boss you got to be, you know, Bowser gets a little bigger, you know? So, but I find that like, if I can be in less pain to learn these things, the better. Or if I note it, like you said, I pick up on them faster. You know, for example, like I talk pretty openly about my eating disorder now and the history with that because, you know, I was at a, I believe it was the US Open in Vegas. This was like one of my rock bottom moments, like so horrible before I got into recovery. And I was, you know, throwing up 5-6 times a day. It was horrible. I was like wrestling for Team USA, traveling all over the world, getting good grades in school, and somehow had my head in a toilet all the time. Wow. I was just, it was horrible. I just didn't want to be here anymore. It was horrible. Wow. And I remember that I had like cut like 25 or 30 pounds in like 2 weeks. And I'm about to go weigh in at the US Open and I'm not on weight. So like my poor mother, like I want to make it clear, she in no way was facilitating or approving of this. She was there to make sure like I didn't die and go to the hospital. Right. She was like trying to keep me from like, you know, being by myself in Vegas, dying. Right. So I'm looking down in the bath as I'm sweating out the weight. My legs are blue. Like we finally get to the venue. I step on the scale. I'm overweight and I'm like, gotta be fucking kidding me. So I have nothing under my singlet, like no sports bra, no underwear, nothing. I go into the bathroom. Someone finds me scissors and I'm looking, I have a picture. I can't believe that this was a God thing, because I can't believe that I took a picture of myself in the mirror at this moment, but for some reason I was inclined to, it was not a good picture.
Right.
I'm looking in the mirror and I'm staring myself in the face. I'm hollow-eyed. My eyes are like gray underneath. So horrible. My face is super gaunt, like my cheekbones, just horrible. And I'm looking myself in the mirror and I like hold my hair out and I chop my hair off and I do it on both sides. And I'm looking at myself and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, is this how I'm going to live my life? Like, and I'm like 17 or 18 at this time. I go out, I step on the scale. I barely even make it to the scale. I can barely walk. Like, they're helping me to the scale. I step on the scale and it's like teetering between 0.1, 0.0, 0.1, 0.0. And it doesn't even lock on 0.0 like it's supposed to. And the guy who's doing my weight, he's like, you're fine, just go. I can't even believe that happened, because that is not a thing. Like with USA Wrestling, they don't just let you through. Like that just, the next day, like, goes without saying, I had a horrible experience, got beat by people I would normally destroy. But the thing that matters about that is I had gotten away with it so many times. I had done stuff like that and I'd won. I was winning everything all the time. And I had no business winning anything the state that I was in. It was like sheer will and some luck and a lot of tenacity and good support systems. And after that tournament, the reason I bring that up is it took me to that level of pain and so much more. Like my poor family was going through so much trying to see if I was going to be healthy to get me into the program that I'm in. And nowadays, if I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling sad and I'm getting like a little like, and I'm like, oh, I need some food or like, like I need to sit in front of the TV and eat some food and like zone out on my phone. I know who to call. I know who to call. I call people that I'm close to me. I know where to go. It doesn't take that much pain to get me to be humble and to be like asking for help anymore. And it's, again, it's not always perfect, varying degrees of difficulty, but for the most part, I know where to go and it doesn't take me as much pain. And that's kind of my goal with all my lessons.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that. And unfortunately, I know there's a lot of women that are listening to this, even men, that can relate to the story that you just shared. What do you think is something, because you said you've been in the recovery program for 7 years now.
Yeah.
Are there any key things that you can pick out from these 7 years? Maybe it's a mindset shift. Maybe it's an actual practical technique. Are there things that have just helped you along your own journey with truly recovering?
Yeah. So I'm in a 12-step program for eating disorders. It's called OA. And I'm always careful about like one of our principles within program is attraction, not promotion. And so I usually, I'm not here to promote a program, but this is what works for me. Right. And so in these programs, one of the major things that we talk about is acceptance of powerlessness. That coming from a type A high achiever, famous in her hometown, like has to get 4.5 GPA, like powerlessness. What is that? Like, I am in control of my destiny. I've got this. I can do it. Just tell me what to do. I'll figure it out. So I am still that go-getter, high achiever girl, but I understand that there are only certain things that are within my power and outcomes are not. And for me, I had to come into an acceptance of like the way that I interact with food is the same as somebody who interacts with alcohol in an alcoholic way. So I can't just go like binge drink and then like help myself throw up to feel better and then expect to be normal the next day like many people do. I can't go eat like 5 bags of something like people do when they're hanging out with their friends on a Saturday night and then like feel okay. Like that, food is like alcohol to me in certain capacities. So powerlessness, but the way that has translated into the rest of my life has been so profound because I am only in control. Like people say all the time, I'm in control of my side of the street. I'm in control of my own actions. But more than that, I think it taught me to take ownership for my inner world. Like I got to label my eating disorder as a disease, and that helped me greatly because then it wasn't a self-control issue. That was just so horrible for my shame, going back to shame and guilt. So much shame and guilt around like, why can't I control this? I'm disciplined in every area of my life. Why can't I get this right? So taking away the shame and the guilt of that and being like, this is a disease that I'm affected by. However, and I'm powerless. However, there's a path to follow. And it's my job to ask for help. And it's my job to follow direction and to take the steps that people who know more and have more experience than I do are telling me to take. That is the key that I've translated into the rest of my life. And again, it hasn't always come without pain. It's come with a lot of pain. But I knew that that path worked for me, that like, okay, I'm powerless over the outcome. I'm powerful, or I'm in my power over my actions. And more than that, I am in power of the containers I put myself in order to learn and to become better at this thing I'm trying to have power over.
Oh, that's so good.
So that's translated into my entire life. Like in my program, I find that I have kind of like I feel like I have a guidebook to life, you know, and I have amazing women that I work with that are amazing wives. They're wonderful mothers. They're powerful business owners. They're good sisters, you know, like they are wonderful, wonderful people, and their lives look very different than I do. They have a way of dealing with, what do I do when I make a mistake, when I hurt somebody deeply? What do I do when someone deeply hurts me? What do I do, like you said, when I have a conversation that I feel is unfinished? What do I do when I feel resentful? Like all of these kinds of things I've been able to translate into my real life. So I don't know, the whole program maybe.
To sum it up, the entire thing.
Powerlessness is a big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's incredible hearing you talk, right? Because you're this 7-time world champion, entrepreneurial business owner. Like you have so many things that are so, like you said, strong and something that you really have full control over. And like you push the needle forward, it's going to go forward. Like, you know, that you've proven it to yourself over and over again. And I think, you know, because I think about life and world in the sense that we're all these spiritual beings that are having this human experience. You know, and we're all here to learn the curriculum that is specific to our spiritual selves and our soul and what we need to learn. And so it's just interesting to me when I view you as this soul that's having this human experience, that you're clearly here, this, you know, this soul to be this like incredible world champion type of person, right? But yet there's this like humble aspect that I feel like comes in the form of what feels like maybe an Achilles heel, right? Like this one thing that's like, there's a lot to learn here. There's depth here that's going to carry you. Like, yeah, you're meant to go and do these incredible, amazing things, but it's going to actually be in this that provides that depth and that layers. And, you know, I think about things similar to that in different ways in my own life or in other people's lives. And I just kind of wonder, like, I'm always just kind of, you know, and these are just open thoughts that are unprocessed, but I just kind of wonder, like, I always ask, like, what for? You know, I have such a curious mindset when it comes to these things, because I don't think it's by accident that we all have different strengths and different weaknesses, you know, and I don't think it's by accident the people that we're connected to. So having this like world champion that is able to speak on something that affects so many people's lives, I can only imagine the amount of people that are listening to this right now, gathering hope, saying like, wow, like if she can go through all of that and she can overcome this thing and live life in a great way and overcome shame and guilt, like I can do that too, you know? So just, I hope you know that you going through this journey in such a way where you're a learner, you're a student always, but you're willing and brave enough to be so vulnerable. Your level of vulnerability, like I'm inspired by it.
Thank you.
Truly, it's incredible, because like, I feel like in life, we need to be shown the way sometimes. It's one thing to say like, okay, here's the math problem and that's how you do it. You know, it's another way to be like, hey, this is how I really fucked up, you know, and it didn't feel good. And I felt like a horrible person, you know, and it's like people look at you and they're like, but you're an incredible person. And you're like, I know that.
Yeah.
But I've been through this too. You know, so to just really like in such an authentic way, share those things is really brave of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I try to, and again, we touched on this earlier. We were eating this like amazing chocolate cake and we were having this amazing conversation. And I used the word shaman so funnily because we talk a lot about consciousness and we talk about being a student of life, but I'm very careful to never like, I think this comes from having been in a lot of pain because of feeling like, oh, I got it now, or I learned the lesson. I'm so fucking careful what energy I put out, not just to other people, but to myself.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, I never want anyone to like look and be like, oh, she has it figured out. Cause I don't know shit. Like, I don't know shit about shit. Like I know a little bit about my own life, but more for me, it's like, I need to be very careful to never put myself in a situation where I'm like, okay, I got it. I figured it out. Like I am, the one who knows everything and now I can share all my pain.
Right.
because the truth is like, I had this experience in a meditation with my yoga therapist I was telling you about, who's a very strong mentor of mine. We came back from this like breathwork and meditation experience, and I was talking myself through it, and I was like, I get the sense of like, I don't know how to explain it, but there is going to be some pain. Like there is going to be some grief. There's going to be some loss. There's going to be some pain. But my capacity for love and joy is so large. It's so big, but you don't get one without the other in my experience. Like my willingness to open into pain, like when there's a crack in the door and it gets ripped open, like that was a choice to not close off. But that choice, yes, it led me to more pain, but it also gave me such a capacity for joy and love. Like that is so huge. And so when you're thinking about like vulnerability, it was scary. There have been different periods in my life where I've been more open about stuff. And it was scary once social media, like my social media is an example of like some of who I am. Right. And when I was, very young, when it started kind of getting some attention from people that I don't know, strangers on the internet, and I would get these messages, and that was its, whole experience in itself. Yeah. People's thoughts about you. But lately, I'm so glad that I'm having the opportunity to talk a little bit about this, and I appreciate your questions, because what happened, in this last year and a half with these injuries is I gained like 25 or 30 pounds with these 2 major injuries back to back. And it brought me back to so many of the lessons around acceptance and powerlessness and the body image and eating disorder and social media, because so much of my social media depended on what I looked like physically and how I showed up looking like a professional athlete. So then you got to look at, where is my value? Right. And so you say like this
is the cycles, and these are the cycles and the depth.
Exactly. And so this cycle of learning, it's like, okay, I don't have to get to so much pain like I did before. And this is a different version of it, because before I was, underweight or whatever. There's a different version of it, but this is reminiscent of the way that I would feel of like, okay, I need to show up. I need to perform. I need to look a certain way. My value is in people's perception of me. Like I thought I had worked through a lot of that. And when these injuries happened back to back, I realized that I had never had to learn how to eat or how to have a diet for a sedentary person. Never in my life. I worked out 2 to 3 times a day, 6 to 7 days a week, my entire life. Right. So that, and then so the weight came. And so now I'm still in this learning process of like, okay, I need to like, now I'm kind of working out like a normal person. I'm still injured. So I'm like, well, I'm redoing all my nutrition and I'm getting help with that. And like, this is, this is really big stuff, but it's happening for me. It feels like it's happening very publicly. Now, of course, you take like into consideration, you got to consider like who really gives a shit, who's really taking that much attention, like who are they? Why am I valuing their opinions? All that's there. But to keep it very real and authentic, and raw is like, I do feel, I'm like, oh my God, this is public. And I'm getting messages about it every day. Totally. And I'm going on Flow Grappling and I'm commentating and I'm on these stages and I'm on like these broadcasts and people are like writing in like, oh my God, Kendall's fat and she didn't used to be. Like, this is real shit.
Yeah. No shit.
And so it's like coming from my sense of self and security being like accomplishments, good grades, praise from my peers, social media numbers growing. Like my social media engagement is shit right now. Like, and I am so blessed to be in a place where I'm like, this isn't like, let's be super honest. Like that's not zero affecting me. Like there is a part of it. I'm like, damn, why is my engagement so low? Is it because I look different? And then I'm able to quiet those voices and kind of get into reality again. But that shit's real. Yeah. Like, and to ignore it is like shame and guilt. It's like, or like, we can name that. That's, well, for one thing, it's self-obsession. And for another one, it's like obsession of other people's thoughts or self-perception, obsession over others' perception. That's a mouthful. But naming that and being like, hey, dude, I'm not going to call you all those words because that was too many words to remember. Hey, dude, I see you, I hear you. And that feeling is valid. I'm not making you wrong for that. People look at that and they're like, well, you shouldn't care what other people think. And it's like, okay, I hear your perception of that. But for me, this is real. So let's acknowledge that. But you don't get to run the show.
Yeah.
You don't get to change my actions and my word in the way that I speak to myself. I can acknowledge you and then put you over here and kick you out and evict you and be like, all right, you may come back and knock on the door, but I don't have to let you in. So that's where I'm at. Like, that's why, being vulnerable and stuff, it's when someone does something to you, in my experience, something does something to you and you're the victim, it's kind of easy to be like, oh yeah, this thing happened. No, like this is stuff that I'm actively a part of all the time that I'm partaking in.
Yeah, that's so good. I feel like what you're really good about doing is loving all parts of yourself, the light and the dark. And I had an experience like that recently where I was really excited to talk to my Instagram stories, and I get on Instagram, and I know every person knows that time when, you get on the stories and you're like, oh my gosh, not a single angle looks good. Like every angle sucks. I look fat. How am I so ugly? Like I'm impressed with how ugly I am today. Just like an ugly day, right? Like an ugly day, a fat day. And those were like the instant thoughts. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use a filter because I don't care. I'll just use a filter today. And then immediately the thought that came up was, could you just love this part of yourself too? And I just like sat with that for a second and almost made me emotional.
Yeah.
Like, you want others to love your light and your darkness, but will you?
Ooh, that gave me like some goosebumps right there.
Right?
Exactly.
And so
or get this, you want other people to love their light and their darkness, and you're preaching that, but you're not doing it.
Yes.
You're not showing up like that.
Yes.
Like, yeah, that's real.
Yes. And so when I hear you saying like, giving yourself that time to say like, hey dude, I see you, but you're not running the show, but you are valid. Yeah. What I see is you just giving yourself self-love and self-compassion towards that part of yourself. So, and I think it's a really great practice to do, to not shy away from being honest and authentic with how you're feeling about certain things, but then choosing, right? Because like all of life is a choice. It's really powerful when you really start to understand that choice, not chance, creates your destiny. And that's a quote by Aristotle. It's something that I always really live by. And it really is true. There's so many times in my life where, I wanted to make a change, or I wanted to make some goals in my life, and there were practical and real like reasons why it couldn't happen right then and there. Yeah. However, where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah. And when I was able to get creative and think outside of the box, right? Even something in terms of like, well, I have a lease, I can't leave for another year. I literally just had to ask my leasing agent and pray. And I was like, I pray that they let me out. Like I need out. And they literally let me out. They didn't even charge a fee.
That's crazy.
Right. And so I say that because we have all these like self-limiting beliefs that sometimes are rooted in reality. Sometimes are rooted in the practicality of like, I literally have a lease.
Yeah.
But like sometimes it's just you taking action and asking, right? Ask God, ask whatever you believe in, ask your leasing agent. You never know. So like, I just really want to encourage people that your life really can be shaped, and you can create whatever life you want by the choices that you make and by your willingness to be courageous and to ask good questions. Ask the questions that are going to lead to where you want to go.
Yeah. One thing about that sticks out to me so much, and a mentor of mine in program taught me this. She used to say to me sometimes when I was going through a lot of turmoil, like when I think I was like 18, 19, 20, around that time, I was trying to figure out like, what am I going to do with business, my life? I'm working with my family, and I'm kind of becoming an athlete, but I'm not making any money yet. And like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she said to me like, Kendall, what you need to know about yourself is you are always going to land on your feet. You are always going to land on your feet. And I kind of understood it at the time. But then the second kind of reiteration of that, well, first of all, I always held on to that statement of like, okay, no matter what happens, like you're going to be okay. You're not going to be homeless. Like you're going to be fine. And even if you were, like you'd be fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's California. Yeah. It's pretty nice. Like if I'm going to be homeless, it's going to be here.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, technically I am. Not really, guys. Just, haven't found the next place.
You got a Patreon yet? No, I was kidding. Right. She's in trouble.
Right.
No, but like that statement. And then I remember there was another big moment in my life where I was ending a relationship and I was really unsure what was going to happen. And I was going to move and all these things. And I remembered what she had said, but I also kind of came up with this mantra for myself of like, I can always change my mind. And that doesn't mean like, there are some decisions, yes, you can't go back from. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, you're going to break up with someone and then change your mind about it. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I can always change. First of all, I'm always going to land on my feet, and I can always change my mind. So I can always change my mind about the direction I want to go. Like I can always take a step down a new path, like say like I mean, there's so many different tangible examples of that, but kind of you're going through that right now with moving.
100%.
You could move here and then be like, you know what? I could change my mind though. And I could always go back and and I could do that. And I can make that happen. If you believe you're always going to land on your feet, it doesn't mean that there isn't fear around decisions you might make, but you feel the fear, like that quote, you feel the fear and you do it anyway. And it's like, sometimes you just got to try it. Like you just got to take the step. And again, it's like so cliche, but the older I get and the more experiences I have, the more I realize that I resonate with this. Is like, I don't want to be fucking 90 years old in my deathbed looking back like, damn, I wish I would have done more stuff that I felt like, oh, maybe I'll do this. Or I wish I would have taken more chances. It's like, I like to live in a way that's like responsible and, with other people in mind and all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, I feel like I can always change my mind and I can always land on my feet. So if that's the case, then I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Yes, yes.
Or try. I can try to do anything I want.
It's such an empowering moment when you realize that for yourself, because it allows you to have freedom in your life and your choices, freedom to get it quote unquote wrong, when in reality, it's not even really wrong. Maybe that was the lesson that you needed that takes you to where you want to go. Like think about how many people fail on the way to that world championship, on the way to that business that finally makes it.
Yeah.
They may have never gotten there had they not learned what they learned from failing first. Yeah. So, I think we're kind of in this world sometimes where people are scared to fail. They're scared to take a chance, scared to fail, scared to get it wrong. But at the end of the day, like you said, you really have to think about like when I'm on my deathbed, what kind of life do I want to have lived? And the truth is only the lucky few are going to make it to their deathbed. There are so many people that die early or die young or don't get that full life. Right. So that's like the best case scenario. And I had to start, thinking about that for myself too. Like if I died at the end of this year, would I be proud with how I was living right now? Like I want to just imagine that in my mind that like, if it was the last year, I want to be able to look back and just be like a full fuck yes.
Yeah.
In every regard. And I like that you say you live responsible with other people in mind. I think
I'm not being reckless, running around like fucking people over, or like breaking all my commitments because I changed my mind. Like,
Right.
But the truth is you're going to fail anyway. Like that's so freeing.
That's the truth.
You're gonna fail anyway. Like, and that's a big lesson from jiu-jitsu because no matter how good you are at competing, you're gonna lose. You're gonna get tapped out. You're gonna lose in training. It's like, you're gonna fail anyway. So I want to at least have some autonomy and choice over the ways within I'm going to fail.
Yeah.
Like I want to know, like, I want to be, like, that's the thing. Like, again, it's not avoidable. Like, it's the same thing people say, like, when, like, I love that little quote about marriage where it's like, well, every relationship has challenges. So you better choose the person you want to go through challenges with.
That's so true.
And same with friendships and family and like all, like everything and work. They're so funny. My boyfriend always says like, the answer is always like almost always work. Like work is the answer to so many things, it's funny. Like that sounds so harsh, but the truth is there are challenges everywhere.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, you don't get to pick a challenge-free life. So you better pick something you're willing to challenge with. And what's funny about changing your mind, I want to go to Joe Dispenza for a second because man, you asked me earlier about like people I look to or things. I mean, you were talking about this earlier. I went to one of his week-long retreats and I'm going to an advanced follow-up in May. I'm so excited. And I remember being there and being like, first of all, to get me to take a week out of my life to go to something like, just like everyone listening to it, like I'm fucking super busy, like, and I have a lot of commitments, a lot of people counting on me, people's careers counting on me. Like I got to be home. But so I went to this thing. That says a lot. And I had these experiences where I'm telling you, like, I felt like I was on the most intense drugs that you can imagine, all through like breath work and meditation. And I understand that sounds ridiculous if you haven't experienced breath work and different things that were very intense, because if you had said that to me before, and I grew up in a very open-minded household, like as far as, a lot of knowledge around these topics. So I already have like a little bit of exposure. So for someone with not a lot of exposure, it's like, fuck off. Okay, whatever. Like what'd you go do? Like ayahuasca or whatever,
But to be clear, you were not.
No drugs.
Right.
Sober. So actually the rules about the retreat, you cannot do drugs while you're there.
Oh, no way. Okay.
Yeah, you can't do anything. Like you can't smoke a joint. Like it's just the way that this program runs, right? And he even says, like, I don't really give a shit what you do, but while you're here, we do a lot of mind altering stuff. So I want to make sure that this is like the only thing affecting your mind for the moment.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, so I'm at this thing and I had that thought of like, you can always change your mind because I had I've always been like a very spiritually in touch person. I didn't know what that meant. Now that I have more knowledge looking back, I'm like, oh, okay. That's why I had this intuition or I had this or that. Or, you know, as a kid, I was like trying to like walk into fire pits and shit, like just for fun, like whatever. just crazy. Swim through the ocean, couldn't swim 2 years old. Like what? Yeah. Just crazy kid. Anyway, so I'm like, and now I'm a combat athlete. Yeah. Here we are. Yeah. So
I love to talk about her feelings.
Oh my God. Yeah. Let me just tell you.
I love the polarity of it all.
Well, it's funny talking about polarity because like masculine and feminine energy is such a big topic. And I think like for women like you and I who are these like driven choice, choice, not chance, like make your life happen, evolve with Emily, like hello, like your whole brand, my whole brand. Right. Yeah. So it's like, this is very easy to fall into masculine energy. But for me, my power is and I have so many women I admire and I could see it in you too when it comes through. It's like that feminine, super, super feminine strength, like that divine love and light that shines through. And this experience at Joe Dispenza's, to kind of tie it in, was a lot of that for me because in these meditations and breathwork experiences, you're trying to have this spiritual experience or a mystical experience, whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, in the first half of the week, trying to muscle my way through. I'm trying to masculine my way through. I'm like, I'm listening to the directions. I'm doing the thing. I'm gonna do it fucking right. And I'm like, I'm like getting like half of it. And I'm like,
that's amazing.
I'm gonna do this for a week, like for a fucking week.
Yeah.
So then once I let go, kind of getting to like the point of it is I have these hugely like intense experience that kind of freaked me out. I was like, am I on, like, I'm not on drugs, right? Like, right. Because I've had my own experiences with things. And for me, that's not something that fits into my life. I don't enjoy that in particular. And I'm very, very sensitive. And so for me, like, as a side note, it's funny because earlier when you're talking about those anxious feelings and you ignore them, like a lot of people have the same thing with like alcohol or reaching for a joint, like the same way that I have had with food. So it's not that I'm immune to reaching for substances, but in this scenario, it's not my thing. So I'm in this experience and I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like what's going on? And I'm relaxing into the experience. And I had this thought of like, you can always change your mind. Like this is coming from somewhere within you. Nothing's controlling you. Like I'm not on a trip a bad trip I can't come back from,
Totally.
But that knowing though, and if that's your thing, that's cool. Like that's not really what I'm talking about. It's more of like relating it back to that lesson of the knowing of like, I can always change my mind. I'm always going to land on my feet. So if I can relax, if I can like be in that feminine space of like, let me just receive this experience and let me just exist with it and be curious. Like, let's just see what happens, like, why not? I can always change my mind. And that's really when the magic started to happen. And these kind of moments, I was brought to tears. Like I felt more love than I've ever felt in my entire life. I felt like I was made of love, like every cell, like every piece of my body. And, coming back into like real life after that was intense.
Yeah.
But it was also the realization of like, this is a beauty. And this is, I mentioned to you earlier, like I talked to my yoga therapist about this. She said something super profound to me that helped me a lot is, we're chasing those experiences is also a form of avoidance of this 3D life that we live in, like, let's get real, right? Snaps to that. Like it's a form. People get very addicted to it. It's like having these mystical experiences or psychedelic experiences in different scenarios, whatever. Same thing as chasing high workout highs. Like these are positive things that can be overdone and overused. It's validation through social media, whatever, validation through men, like all of it. Like I'm not immune to any of this stuff, So taking that into consideration, there is a lot just in the spiritual realm. Like there's a lot to be done in this 3D body. I was born into this body for a reason. I'm here in this time, in this space for a reason with these people around me in this world and this earth. So I don't need to do a whole lot of like figuring all of the integrations out. People really overdo that in my opinion. I used to overdo that a lot. It's like, how about I set myself some time and space to allow myself to fall into these experiences, and I have to figure out what balance of that works for me. But then, she said to me, most minutes of your life are going to be lived in this body, in this 3D reality, not in the 5D. Like everything is everything all the time. Okay, whatever. But like right now I'm here and I see a dog and I see a microphone and I see you and I see the water. Totally. So how do I live here well? I guess is kind of what I was trying to get to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much gold here in what you're saying. I believe that what you just described when you were describing your process of really letting go into the experience, you fully described the art of surrender. That really is what that is. And it's so beautiful and it's so powerful when people are really able to truly surrender because, and this is something I've navigated in my own life too, is I was in survival mode for so long and I was in my masculine for so long. It's just what I had to do to survive that it became my norm. So even when I didn't need to like have the arms up, so to speak, I was still here like ready to go. Right. Yeah. And I believe that the art of surrender is when you realize you're capable of this. You're capable of fighting when you need to fight so that you can live like this. You can live like this because you can always make it a different decision. If and when life needs you to fight back for yourself, you can, right? So for those people that have always lived in that survival mode, that survival instinct, you can use those skills, but you get to be in the driver's seat and the choice of when those things come out. But going throughout life, always in that survival mode, always in that ready to fight mode, you're not receptive. Yeah. And receptivity is literally half of the equation. You can't just always put out. You can't just always be the one giving and doing and working and being working and doing, but you also have to be the one being.
Yeah. Do versus be is like masculine versus feminine. Like it all exists in all of us, right? It's such a hot topic right now, masculine versus feminine, but I love it. And I've learned a lot. And I realized that so many of the beautiful relationships in my life, like romantic, yes, but even just friendships and business relationships that I have now could not have existed before when I was operating my masculine, close to 100% of the time or 90% of the time, whatever. Because if you think about magnets, I was repelling these relationships that I have now that I'm more open to recept, like you said it perfectly with the equation, there's receiving, receptive, receiving and giving or doing and being, right? Doing versus being. And it's like, if I'm one all the time, the other one's going to go away. It's not needed. Like there's no space for it, but if I dial back, now there's space for it. But I think that was so beautiful how you spoke to people, like if you're in survival mode, for me, what it required to get out of that, because I had some beautiful relationships around me that were supportive, but I just wasn't really allowing for that support to happen. So it's not to take away from the people who loved and cared about me during that time. I just was not there for it. Like I was like, yeah, whatever. I was like, no, I got you. You ain't got me. I got you. I got myself and I got you and I got everybody in the whole world. Like how fucking arrogant, but it's what I felt like I had to be in to survive, right? They're different things. So it's like being, it's so funny. I lost my train of
so
thought.
real. The being and the doing and the.
Oh yeah. So it's not to take, I had those people around and so it's not to take away from that, but it wasn't until I dropped back and did a lot less that I was able to receive and let those relationships in. And when you're speaking to people, this is what I was thinking. When you were speaking to people, I think it's important that I didn't come out of survival mode until I was blessed enough to reach out and surround myself with people who were safe enough for me to be. Two things. Totally. I had to be the safety to myself. That's obviously paramount, that internal place in myself. I had to sit by myself and be alone and feel pretty lonely, not because I didn't have people who loved me, but because the experience I had, I didn't know how to verbalize it and I was going through it alone. And I'm having this experience and I'm like, I need to create a safety within myself. Whatever is going on, can't be wrong or bad. It just needs to be and I need to accept it and love it. Really, really love it. Naming those things. I can't be having the knowledge or the awareness that I'm worried about people judging my body size on social media and then pretend that doesn't exist and really be at home with myself. I won't feel at home with myself and then I can't be real with you. So I can't really let you in because I don't really like who I am. So now I'm in survival mode because you might hurt me. If I know and love myself for all the things that I am, I got me. I really got me. So it's not to say you can't hurt me anymore, but it's it's okay if you try to hurt me because I got me. If I really know me and I really see it and I really love it and accept it, I got me. And again, it's like going back to the remembering versus forgetting. That's not 24/7, 100% of the time. I'll forget and then I come back and then I remember. But having that safety within yourself and then combining it with like seeking out healthy, wonderful relationships that can support that. Then for me, the walls started to come down. And I learned it. Like people say like, oh, you got to heal fully and then be in a relationship or have deep friendships. For me, that wasn't my experience. I was doing a ton of interpersonal work, but other relationships that were safe and healthy and supportive made it possible for me to pull back from that survival mode. So for me, it was both, you know?
Yeah. I love that you share that. And it's kind of brought up a thought that it's a saying, and it says that you get what you are, not what you want. So even as you're doing that healing work, I believe that because you were doing that healing work, that you were able to get what you were at that time, which were other safe human beings practicing safety within themselves and providing that safe space for others around them as well. So it makes perfect sense, why I think you may have experienced that. Okay, so this talk has been absolutely incredible. We have to end with a jiu-jitsu question, I feel like, because we didn't even talk about jiu-jitsu on this podcast.
So true.
With a 7-time world champ. But that's what I love as well, is that there are so many facets to you. And I love the fact that this is what happened. But I do just want to sum it up here with like a jiu-jitsu question, because for people that are in it, they're going to be just kicking me right now. Like, Emily, why did you not ask her any jiu-jitsu questions? What's her number one move? Oh my God. Okay. Well, actually, let's ask like a silly question or two.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, let's do some rapid fires.
Do you have like a quick go-to, like finisher submission? Like what is it called?
My favorite takedown is a far knee tap. I'm really good at it.
Really?
Far knee tap. I'm fucking great at that shit.
What's your favorite position?
Mount now. Mount's my favorite position right now. Classic. Yeah.
What's your least favorite position to get caught in?
Oh God. Maybe bottom mount or someone.
Right.
With
I guess that's everyone, right?
Or someone with good back control. Someone with good back control is probably very maddening as shit. I have good training partners that I'm thinking right now. They're horrible. Oh my God. Please don't take my back. It's horrible.
As a 7-time world champion in jiu-jitsu, the sport that you love, what, if anything, changed from the first title to the second, to the third, to the sixth, you know what I mean? All the way up. Like were there things that changed in you as an athlete with the more titles, and was the pressure increasing as the titles became more?
There was a shift. So my first answer is the thing that changed from the first to the 7th. Because they were at different belt levels. Like not all of them are at black belt. They're at different belt levels. From my first to the 7th, and also going into ADCC, where obviously we didn't even talk about that, but obviously I got injured at ADCC and that was horrible. But I felt like I was going to, I had this deep knowing in myself that I was going to win that day. And I say that not lightly, because I haven't always felt like that. I've had a lot of, So anyway, I really felt like I was going to win that day. And that was a very huge experience. Another talk for another time. But we could have talked to her about that. But anyway, for the jiu-jitsu people, what changed from the first time I won the worlds at like blue and then purple until now is the need to have the title.
Ooh.
Yeah, the need to have it. That's the thing that kept playing as you're asking questions. The need to have it. The desire, still there, but the need to have it. And what that kind of shifted somewhere in the middle, around like purple, brown belt. Or actually like brown to black, maybe. Yeah, like brown to black. It was the need to have it. And the pressure was around the same time. Like after I won my brown belt world title, things started to really change, because it wasn't that I won a title and then I felt worthy. It was that in between like brown and black belt, I started to realize that people were falling off that I had competed against and lost to. And I knew that I was having way more fun than so many of the people that I was competing with. And not that that's better or worse, but it just made me feel like I was going to last and I wanted to stay. And that was a big part of it. And I started to really focus more on like, how do I want my life to look? What do I want my days to look like for real, like day in and day out? Because there are plenty of careers that I could be making a lot of money in. I feel like I have a lot of skills and a lot of talent, and I could take my skills and talent in other places and jiu-jitsu is not paying me anything, but like, what do I want my life to look like? Cause I'm choosing this actively. Like again, choice over chance. Like, you know, I'm choosing this. So, but really, really, really what it came down to is like enjoying my life, loving the day in and the day out, the relationships, and the need to have the thing that I put on the pedestal. Because, you know, this is actually when I quit, I ended up leaving wrestling, mostly due to the eating disorder. But one of the biggest things, and this translated over to jiu-jitsu too, was thinking like, if I live my life like this every single day and I get to the Olympics at the time in wrestling and I lose, will it be worth it?
Wow.
And the answer was no in wrestling. And that had a lot to do with the eating disorder. Wrestling's not evil, but that was where I was at.
I love that you say that.
Just to be clear, like my wrestling fans are there, I love wrestling, but it's where I was at. My life, the way I was living my life was not going to be worth it, including these, like that was all in one, wrapped in one. In jiu-jitsu, it was at first, the answer is like, well, if I get to the Worlds and I don't win, is it worth it? First, the answer was I don't know, because I was at a point in my life where so much of my self-worth depended on my accomplishments still. And that's okay. That's just where I was, you know? And I was young, like 18, 19, 20, those times. And then as time went on, I won some, I lost some. I had some, you know, some big losses. I've still never won a gi world championship at black belt. I've won at purple belt. Like there were a lot of things I didn't get, you know, I didn't achieve, had bad events. And every single time, like I always came back to that question, like if I don't get it, will it be worth it? And slowly over the years, it turned into a yes. First, it was maybe, I don't know, kind of, I think so. Then it was yes. And I really felt that going into ADCC, because with having to pull out of ADCC trials, my back injury, we didn't know if I was going to get invited. It wasn't a guarantee, but like everyone in the world of jiu-jitsu that I ever spoke to was like, oh, for sure you're going to go. And I'm like, well, I don't actually know. Like it could be a bunch of people that get invited.
Yeah.
And so I got invited. Then I get there. And I'm like doing my whole training camp, and I have this amazing video. I'm so glad I took this video. Kind of like when I took the picture in the mirror.
That's just what I thought of.
I had this video. I was leaving the gym. I had this whole back injury during ADCC. I barely even trained for ADCC, but like I did everything that I possibly could. And I'm leaving the gym. I did a little bit of cardio or something, and I'm walking out. I'm not in the shape I want to be in. I'm not training the way I want to be in. I feel I haven't competed in so long, but I looked up at the sky. And it was so beautiful. It must have been like 5 or 6, close to sunset. It was so beautiful. And I had this experience that makes me emotional. I was like, these are some of the best days of my life. Like, these are if I decide, like, these are some of the best days of my life. I'm chasing something I love in a way that makes me so happy. Like, I love that I'm doing this. I love who I'm doing it with. And I have this video and I saved it and I actually posted it. I'll have to pull it up and send it to you.
Yeah.
Because I wrote a caption about it. I was like, these are the best days of my life. And I was like, no matter what happens at ADCC, like this can't be taken away, because the person I am today is cemented in history forever, in my own history. Like this is my own history of feeling like this, and nothing can take this away. Something that happens in 2 months from now does not change this. And that took me so many years to learn. Like, because it was like, the camp's not worth it if I lose. Like, if I lose it, what was the point?
Wow.
You know, it's like, if I went through all those weeks and all those months, and like, what's the fucking point? It was all useless. And I'm like, no, because look what I became in the process. Like, look what I did. Look at those experiences. Not just like, and not even that, because that's still results based. It's like, no, what was my day like? Like, did I enjoy my own presence, like my own self? Was I proud of myself in those moments? And so it really, like, over the years, that's where it shifted from like, is it worth it if I lose? And that became a very strong yes. And at ADCC, it was the strongest I had ever been. And you know what? In the back of my mind, I thought that meant that I was going to win, because I was like, I care the least about the result. I'm going to go out. Like, I care the most about my performance. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to kick ass. This is going to be fucking amazing. I'm going to be a champion. But if not, I love my life and I love this whole process. And so I thought I was going to win. And then life knocked me down again. And I hate that sounds so like pity, but like it did. It knocked me down. It was very difficult. But it was another opportunity to be like, do you really feel that way? Did you mean it? Ooh. Did you mean it? Because you said it. Let's fucking see if you meant it, you know? Like, you sure? You sure about that? You sounded real confident, you know? Like, oh, you know what? No, let's take you off the mats. Let's have some mental struggles. Let's gain some weight. Like, let's take away all this validation and let's see who you really are. And that's how it felt, you know? And, you know, but I was so proud of myself because I was like, no, but still it was worth it. Like, I wouldn't change anything. Like, I wouldn't change I wouldn't change anything. And I think back to that girl who was walking out of the gym last summer, And I feel oh my God, so much life has changed since then. It's crazy. But I think back to that girl and I'm like, dude, fuck yeah. Like, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for looking in the sky in that moment and being like, these are some of the best days of my life, and capturing it so you could see it forever. So that you always had proof to yourself that no matter, because she didn't know what was going to happen. She thought she was going to win, you know? And so now it's like, take that girl and show her everything that's happened and been like, no, but you were right. Like, you were right. You still get to keep this, you know, like that's what I've learned through a lot of world championships.
Girl, I did not expect that answer, but it's you. And I probably should have expected something incredible like that. That makes me emotional just thinking about it, because I feel like what you've done is shown us how incredible it can be to create a life that you're thrilled to live, to create a life that you can find joy, purpose in, that you can be proud of yourself in. You know, you said before this that the training sucked, that they were like so challenging and so hard. And yet that's where you find your happiness and your joy and your purpose. And I love the fact that in a moment of being in training camp, right, which I think a lot of people could get so tunnel vision that they're so focused on their goals. They're training, okay, I got to get my water and then my food, and then they could just be like this. But you actually took a moment to be still and be present, truly present, take in your surroundings. And now you have this beautiful perspective that you get to like literally shift lives with, but really just more than anything, shift your own life too. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, and just for all of the wisdom that you shared with us today. Wow. I feel like I could make clips off every single thing in this podcast.
Thank you for holding space for it and for asking good questions. Like, this is probably one of the favorite interviews I've ever, or like podcast interviews that I've ever done, because it just takes things past the level of just jujitsu. Like, jujitsu is beautiful. It's a wonderful thing. It's great. But what are we here to do outside of just what we do on the mats, you know? And I don't know the answer. Like, a lot of things, like you're the same, like you're so multifaceted, you're doing so many things. And it's like, you know, my thought when I listen to podcasts, I try to think about that when I create podcasts. It's like, what might resonate with somebody who has more life experience than I do, less life, similar, different experiences. Like, is there anything that they can hear where they can be like, man, I feel seen, like right now. I feel heard right now. I'm not even saying anything and I feel heard. Like, I I was listening to Drew Barrymore, one of the most famous fucking people on the planet. You know, like ultra famous, like amazing. And I literally felt like we were homies. You know, 100%. I was like, dude, I get you. Like, I get you. Thank you for speaking your truth. Because then when I look at who the fuck you are, I'm like, no, we're the same. It's such a powerful reminder. Like, we're the same. So anyway, I appreciate you asking good questions, because it just brings, you know, we're all the same stuff.
I always say, I wish that we could go around seeing with soul-centered eyes. Like, I wish we could go around literally with, like, you know, not looking through our eyes, but just like speaking heart to heart, soul to soul. And that's one of the reasons why, like, good conversation, quality conversation of intimacy and depth and vulnerability and authenticity is one of my main core values, which makes sense why I'm a podcaster. But what I've noticed is that when people speak to heart, soul to soul, there's so much more that can be received there. And that's one thing that I love about podcasting, because when people they usually listen, some watch, but usually they listen. And I feel like their hearts are so much more receptive to what's there. So we could go on for hours. Maybe next time we will ask for questions and maybe we'll do more of a mix of some jujitsu, some competing, some, you know, personal development. Cause I feel like you're going to have to be a repeat guest now that I'm in San Diego.
Awesome. Yay. All
right, guys, you know the drill. If you enjoyed today's show, then please do us a favor and share it on your Instagram stories, text it to a friend. You can tag both myself and Kendall. Make sure to check out all of her stuff linked down below. If you are in the Newport area, make sure to check out her gym. Do you want to shout out your gym?
Yeah, Gracie Baja Newport Beach. We have GB Newport Beach, Gracie Baja Corona, Gracie Baja Riverside, and Gracie Baja Redlands. I'm at, you know, kind of all four. My family has those. But any jiu-jitsu school near you, go try a class if you haven't already. Jiu-jitsu is a great place to get to know yourself a little better.
I always say it's like such an amazing platform for personal development.
Yeah, it is.
And you build a really dope skill. So, all right, guys, we love you and we will see you in the next episode of Evolve with Emily. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Awesome.
Yay, dude, that was awesome. Oh my gosh.
Where were we?
I know. I feel like it was one of those conversations where like transported
We
out.
did.
Like the energy is just connected and like everything else is so good.
That was amazing. I don't even know if you understand the depth of what you just shared.
Ooh.
I don't think
Is that how you feel? That feels good to hear.
I don't think you even realize it. Like you're because in the way that you just like connect everything into this whole storyline.
string things together.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, thank
Like-
you for saying that.
I used to never, so if I was on a podcast, I honestly like wouldn't go back and watch it. But I think that you should listen to some of the things that you said because I think it'll hit differently.
Yeah, like man, when you read that caption, I was like,
You're like, did I say that?
no. I was like, hey girl, how'd you not even hear that? Like, who are you?
Are we not wearing the same leggings?
Oh, they're almost
Very
close. They're
similar.
almost, yeah, I love it. Oh, thank you. That was so